Yo, it's Bernard from everydaycarry.com and welcome back to another video. This is the Ridge Everyday Folder. It's Ridge's newest pocket knife and it just dropped today. Now you've probably heard of or seen Ridge from their minimalist wallets that are all over YouTube, but this knife is their latest effort in creating more everyday carry gear beyond the wallets they're known for. So is it any good? Well, surprisingly, I find myself reaching for this knife these days a lot more often than the rest of the higher end knives in my collection, and in this video, I'll tell you why. I'll show you everything you need to know about the knife from the unique position of being the most knowledgeable person about this knife on YouTube. And I can only say that because of this huge disclaimer I have to make. So Ridge is the parent company of everydaycarry.com. So technically, I work for Ridge. I was involved in the design and product development process of this knife, and I've been carrying and testing prototypes and samples of this knife for longer than anyone else on the internet. Even though Ridge is this brand's parent company, they're not the ones writing the script. I am. And I'm self-aware enough to know that you might not trust me because of the potential for this huge, obvious bias. But I'm still an EDC nerd, and this is my honest review as someone who enjoys Ridge stuff, but also handles a lot of EDC knives from all sorts of brands. So just keep that in mind. Just have to be super transparent about that and know that buying a knife from my link in the description supports the channel. You don't have to. Just buy where you're comfortable or not at all. But if you bought using my affiliate links, it would help and I'd appreciate it. So let's open them up and see what you get in the box. So there are 4 color and material options for the everyday folder. There's a royal black in anodized aluminum. There's Basecamp orange in a powder coated aluminum. And then as we get into the premium options, there's this carbon fiber 3K with a weave pattern and some lighter weight. And then my personal favorite, the titanium. This is a grade 2 pure titanium and a stonewash finish. You get this insert and it shows some of the features and design cues of the everyday folder. Silica gel packet, classic, favorite snack. And then it also comes with this little sheath here, branded Ridge at the bottom. And then inside is the knife itself. So these are all chosen to match the rest of Ridge's most popular colorways, making it easy to complete a full Ridge EDC if you wanted. For example, like you could match the Ridge wallet in titanium to the knife in titanium. So let's take a look at the overall specs here. It's got a 2.8-inch blade, so just under 3 inches, with a modified drop point geometry, Sandvik 14C28N blade steel, finished with a black DLC coating, Ridge branding in silver on the blade, and it deploys via a nail nick sized thumb hole on ceramic ball bearings, securing into a crossbar lock. The handle is made of skeletonized stainless steel with a matching stainless steel backspacer. The handle scales are either aluminum on the royal black and Basecamp orange, or carbon fiber 3K or grade 2 titanium as mentioned, and a non-reversible deep carry tip-up pocket clip with a debossed hexed R logo, and all the accompanying hardware is also DLC coated stainless steel. I like to think of Ridge as a great gateway brand to get a more mainstream audience into everyday carry gear. And that's just important context to know as it informs the design language for this collection of knives. So the everyday folder is designed to be a folding knife for EDC, and it's definitely designed with Ridge DNA. That means it's leaning towards this more minimalist side with a few hallmark motifs, like this thumb cutout similar to the Ridge wallet, exterior plates on a central chassis that's also similar to the wallet. It's got hex screws and Ridge branding, pretty much just like how the Ridge wallet and key case work. So there's very consistent design language across the collection. As far as the ergonomics, this is good for me just because it is a smaller knife, but I have smaller hands and there's plenty of good jimping on the spine. And these chamfered edges with the good fit and finish really make it comfortable in hand. Like the chamfers really kind of let your fingers rest into it. And it might look sharp, but it isn't. Compared to like other knives that are way more expensive, I stopped using them because they just sort of pinched, especially at this section here, like towards the finger choil. Like if I gripped really hard, it would kind of pinch and dig into my skin. That just doesn't happen here. And this is grippy enough when I'm using like latex or vinyl gloves, but I struggle a little bit in deploying the blade when using work gloves. So if that's your situation, I recommend just like using the lock to disengage and then deploy the knife that way. But for bare hands and like thin gloves, like this works fine. So looking closer at some of the smaller details of this knife, this nail nick, for example, is really small. And what that does is it makes most of the blade just hide into the handle. And it's reminiscent of the Ridge wallet and how the Ridge wallet itself is like sized perfectly to accommodate the bare minimum dimensions of a credit card, such that the credit card barely peeks out of the thumb notch here. So I feel like that's mimicked here, and it gives that sleek minimalist feel that might look less threatening or attention grabbing around people who might not be comfortable seeing knives, since basically none of the blade is exposed. So as far as the fit and finish goes, I think it's really good, and that's because this knife is produced by Best Tech. This is part of my input to the Ridge product development team, just to be transparent. I told them like, yo, if you're gonna make a knife, you should pick a manufacturer who can like really make good knives, and Best Tech is known for that. They're like the OEM for brands like Glow Rhino, Vero Engineering, just like well-respected EDC brands, right? They did a really good job making these. Like the blade centering is dead on. The chamfers are smooth on these handles, so I don't get any hot spots, and it's just like a really nice tactile experience of just holding and looking at this object. It's got like, a nice radius wherever there's a curve, and it's just grippy where you want it to be, like on the thumb studs and on the jimping, but not so aggressive that it's painful, I think it's just like well executed there. Then as far as blade play, there's like very minimal laterally, if at all, and then up and down like vertically it's like virtually none. I can't get it to wiggle there. So again, and then like the action is really good, super satisfying, just because they're on that ceramic ball bearing pivot, just like flies out when I flick it. And you don't have to flick it that way. So there are a lot of ways to deploy this knife. However, it is using this smallish nail nick that I mentioned. I'm going to show you all the ways to deploy it and how I do it, but just keep in mind my hands are on the smaller side and I handle a lot of knives in general, so I kind of know how to do this. But I would say the easiest way for people who are new to knives and like you just bought a Ridge wallet and you like bundled this with it and you're not really sure how to do it, you can just use two hands, right? So you can just pinch the blade from the nail nick and just open it this way. It's like safe and controlled. And then you can use your thumb, just like manually slowly open, just pushing the blade out. Then if you get a little bit better, you can flick it out with your thumb like that. And then my favorite is the reverse flick, and that's using the backside of the nail nick with your index or middle finger like this, pinching the handle between your hands and then flicking outward. Or you can just disengage the lock itself and swing the blade out that way. That's like probably the easiest one hand to open. And then for like a little swag, you can just pinch it and drop it from the blade. Just be very careful. Actually, don't do that. I don't recommend that. Anyway, this is all possible because of this lock mechanism, the crossbar lock. It's the generic term for what you might have seen before as Benchmade's patented axis lock. So that patent has expired. It's very popular on a lot of Benchmade knives, and it's now been used by other brands in the past couple of years because it's just a very proven, safe, ambidextrous, easy to use lock, and it just makes for a very modern meta lock. And I'll quickly explain how it works for people who maybe aren't familiar with it, but basically there's a single bar that goes through the handle and behind the blade or across the handle, crossbar lock. The back of the blade is shaped in such a way that as you open the blade, it pushes the crossbar down and out of the way until the knife is fully open. Then springs push the bar forward to block the knife from rotating on the pivot, effectively locking it in place. This lock disengages by pinching the bar between your fingers and pulling the bar back against the tension of the spring, letting the blade freely rotate on the pivot back into the closed position. So what are the advantages of this? It's extremely strong as a lock. It's easy to use whether you're left or right-handed because you can manipulate the lock from either side or both sides, and it's inherently safer than slip joints and other locking knives like liner locks, where disengaging the lock puts your thumb and fingers in the path of the blade while it's closing. So it also makes deploying easier than most other manual deployment mechanisms. You can just disengage the lock and swing the blade out like I showed before. But there are a few things to look out for when it comes to the crossbar lock. This is really dependent on the springs working. So the lock type on other knives that use this style of lock, it has been reported that the springs may fail, and you can't adjust the position of the spring to change its tension on this particular model. So I've been carrying this for maybe like 6 weeks to 2 months now. I mainly use it around the house, out and about when I'm doing volunteering shifts at the food bank. So nothing too hardcore, just like everyday stuff like the name Everyday Folder suggests. And I'll slice through tape, I'll slice through plastic packaging, cardboard, I will cook shamefully mediocre bachelor meals, and don't tell anyone, but I have pried a staple or two with this tip, and it could handle it. So it uses a Sandvik 14C28N steel. That's a Swedish stainless steel, and it's popular in many EDC knives these days because it offers pretty well-rounded performance. Like, it's pretty good at corrosion resistance, making it better suited for wet and humid environments or food prep, or like if you're working just by water often. Plus, the coating on this blade also helps with this, and it makes it easier to maintain. And it's decently tough, but it doesn't hold an edge for crazy long. Like, that's just some of the trade-offs that you get with this kind of blade steel. But the benefit of that is that it's relatively easy to sharpen when it gets to that point, and it can take a good edge. So it makes sense to use 14C28N on a knife like this based on the target end user. So maybe it's just like the average knife user, knife collector, or the first time knife buyer. And even collectors respect 14C28N. It's good, but again, it's like by no means top of the line. And to be honest, I handle super steels like CPM MagnaCut, but for my real life, I don't really need the super high-end stuff to get the job done most of the time. And this knife has held up well for everything I've used it for. So like I mentioned, I've been using this for about 6 weeks. You can see some wear on the coating of the blade. Admittedly, the tip isn't razor sharp anymore, as I used it for things I shouldn't have. Like, I was lightly prying staples and like scraping gunk off of metal grates and like piping and stuff. Don't ask. I was doing it for science just to see like what would happen, and it's held up fine. It's just not as sharp as it was, but that's kind of to be expected with this sort of steel. And while this is a smaller knife, because the blade comes in at 2.8 inches, I think that can be a benefit for some people because it brings it under the 3-inch threshold. And a lot of places kind of restrict knives that are 3 inches or longer. And I would say that most EDC knives on the market are around 3.25 inch to 3.5 inches. But because of this drop point geometry, you still get a lot of cutting edge on this blade. And then it comes to like this sort of swedge up here, and it helps with piercing. And it just looks pretty cool. It catches the light in a certain way. So it was enough for me in these smaller tasks. And I think you just have to keep that in mind, that this is not a big knife. And it's part of the charm, honestly, because it makes carrying the knife easier. So I might as well talk about what the experience is like in the pocket. I'm right-handed, and I can appreciate that I can carry it in my front right pocket. So the pocket clip is not reversible, but it rides like actually deep. It's the knife, because it's so small, is actually like thin and small enough that it fits in my jeans coin pocket. And it's not like I'm wearing the biggest jeans either. Like, I'm not a big guy. And because it's so slim and it's compact and it rides deep, I can just keep it clipped in my jeans and forget about it until I need it. And then it's there. So the clip itself is plenty wide, and it looks similar to the Ridge key case clip that has that similar raised lip that makes it easy to slide over even thicker pants. And this hasn't bent out of shape or broken on me so far. And like, sitting down, getting out of your car, whatever, retrieving the knife is easy enough. I find myself mainly getting my index finger under the lip of the clip and then thumb on the handle and then just pull upwards. It does mean you have to like readjust your fingers and reorient the knife to deploy it, but that's common for most knives anyway. And just to give you an idea of how much smaller this knife is compared to a lot of the other popular options out there, I'm going to show a few on screen here. So we have the Benchmade Bug Out, the Hogue Deca, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, Kershaw Iridium, and then the Vosteed Raccoon in the crossbar lock. And then just one last note on the size and the overall design and just like the total package of it. There's something about this that feels like just a compelling object to hold and fidget with and manipulate. It's I think it's just because of the sleek finish, like the good machining to it. It just feels good to manipulate. So there's kind of that fidget factor there as well, if that is important to you in a knife. It is to me, and I think it's suitable for that as well. So to recap, I'm just going to go over some of my personal pros and cons of the Ridge Everyday Folder. I'm going to start with what I think is the best strength of this is that it's just very compact. And I really like this because it's something that you can just toss in your pocket or bag and really forget about until you need it. And then despite the size, it performs well for the tasks it's designed for, just like your everyday general utility. The next pro, I really like the fidget factor and the action on this knife. Again, it just flies out of the handle when you flick it. It's got these ceramic ball bearings, so that's really smooth and satisfying. And then the handle itself is just machined in such a way that I want to just manipulate the knife in my hand, when I'm at meetings, I'm fidgeting with it, not even flicking it open. It just feels good to hold. Next pro is I would say the blade has good steel length and shape for everyday tasks for more people, right? It hits that sub 3-inch threshold. So this is an option for a lot more people than most of the everyday carry folding knives with this crossbar lock and drop point blade style. So I just appreciate that this is a little bit more accessible in that way. And then another pro is the fit and finish. Again, this is produced by Bestech. Everything is like pretty spot on with this. Have no issues there, and I think that's pretty solid. Another pro is that if you are in the Ridge ecosystem, like you have the wallet and key case or the pen or whatever, like there is synergy here along with Ridge warranty and customer service, right? So those are some of the intangibles that come with buying a more premium product from a brand like Ridge. Now for the cons, like this is not perfect, right? Like let's be real. Like the steel, I would say if you're a knife nerd, this is like middling steel for the price, especially on the premium handle versions, because like if you're getting carbon fiber or titanium, it's the same 14C 28N steel as the less expensive aluminum handled versions, right? And then another con I would say is that the ergonomics might be hard for some people if your hands are larger or you like just don't like smaller knives, then you just need to watch out for that because this is designed to be a sleek, modern, minimalist, smaller knife, right? And then one last thing, the pocket clip is not reversible, right? So this is not truly fully ambidextrous. Like if you're left-handed, you can use it, but you just can't orient the clip in both ways. So keep that in mind. So normally at the end of these reviews, I like to talk about like, who is this for? Who is this product for? But I'm going to start with who it isn't for. Like this is not for budget blade collectors. If you're looking for a budget knife, like this ain't it, chief. The standalone full MSRP might be the sticking point for many of you knife guys. So the base aluminum models like Royal Black and Basecamp Orange start at 150 US dollars, while the premium material options like titanium and carbon are priced at $175. The knives do become a better value when they're part of the Ridge Daily Survival Kit, which is basically what my EDC is these days. It's an original Ridge wallet, a key case, and the everyday folder in the same matching material and colorways. So these pre-bundled matching loadouts are not much more expensive at $195 for Royal Black and Basecamp Orange, $250 for titanium, and $275 for carbon fiber. So if you pay another $50 to $100 and invest upfront in that upgrade into the more minimalist Ridge ecosystem, you're saving around 35 to 40-ish%, if I can do math, for the knife, along with your new wallet and key solution as well. And then when all of them work together, you're just going to have that synergy and that cohesive design language, and all of it will be backed by Ridge's warranties and customer service. So that's the benefit of looking at the knife in that pricing context. So who is the Ridge Everyday Folder knife for, right? Like who is it designed for? I would say it's for people who aren't too picky about blade steels. Like if I tell you that this is 14C28N steel from Sandvik and it isn't CPM MagnaCut or S90V or LC200N or Van X Super Clean, and none of that makes sense to you, like bro speak English, then you'll be fine with this. Like this is a good steel for most people and for most tasks that this knife is designed for, and it makes sense. It's just you have to sort of be also someone who wants a premium product and you're comfortable paying that premium price, right? Like this again is not an ultra budget, super cheap knife. Like no way. It's produced by Bestech. It comes from Ridge, so it's not like in that ultra value budget category like some of the other popular EDC knives. And I would say this is best for people who are in the Ridge ecosystem and this might be their first knife. If that is you, like you love your Ridge wallet and your Ridge key case and the luggage and the rings and whatever, like this, I think you will really enjoy this. Because I enjoy it and I'm pretty discerning in that I handle multiple knives, like probably more knives than the average person ever. Like I handle more knives just because of my job than the average person, and I still can find enjoyment and joy out of this knife, and it gets the job done. So I think I've said everything I have to say about this knife. Overall, it's a great, compact, minimalist option from a more premium brand. It's great within the Ridge ecosystem, and it's designed for the average knife collector or first-time knife user. I've been testing mine, and it's been through cardboard boxes and breakfast sandwiches, several falls, and it's just been in my pocket every day, and it's been holding up great. So what do you guys think of the Everyday Folder? If it looks up your alley, again, you can pick one up at the link in my description from ridge.com/everydaycarry and use the code everydaycarry for 10% off your order, and it just helps support the channel. So thanks so much for watching. I'm Bernard. I hope this helps, and until the next one, peace.